Confess and realize. Take two. How we doing, tribe? It's Jaya on Confess and Realize, a collection of revelations that lead to the realization of the authentic self. We're going to start off with a quote, as we always do, and it's from Self Meditation 3,299 Tips, Quotes, Reminders, and Wake Up Calls for Peace and Serenity by Barbara Ann Kiffer. Page 333 says, let your thoughts be as light as bubbles. I know that seems really like childish, maybe. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I take that back. I retract that statement. Let your thoughts be as light as bubbles. Such a beautiful quote, I feel. I think that a lot of times we get caught up in heavy thoughts. And we don't have to have such heavy thoughts all the time. I mean, of course, there are times in life where you don't really have a choice but to ponder heavier topics. But maybe more times than not in life, we allow ourselves to remain attached to these heavy thoughts. Put them down. Free them. Allow them to become lighter and lighter inside of you. As Kipfer said, let your thoughts be as light as bubbles. Take a moment to reflect on those words, tribe. Let them hang in the space between you and your mind. What do you see? What does it mean to you? Do you feel that you're someone that gets caught up in a lot of heavy thoughts? I can tell you, Virgo moon, Virgo Venus. Yeah, it can get real heavy over here. So I feel you on that. But no, you can choose to lighten the load, lighten those thoughts. Let them float past you, let it go. Release. You deserve it. What does this mean to you, tribe? Let your thoughts be as light as bubbles. Drop some gems in the comments. Drop them in a listening ear. Drop them in your journal. Thank you, Barbara. Gratitude, universe. And thank you so much, tribe, for tuning in to another take of Confess and Realize. Take two. Let's get it. Question: how can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? Well, I gotta say, I feel that failure is an illusion that's created by the ego to the self, in order to keep it trapped in the cycles and patterns that serve the ego. Life is about choices. It's about you choosing. Will you say, oh, I'm a failure, oh, I failed? Or will you choose to forgive yourself? The key to letting go of failure and, being able to reframe that as a stepping stone to success, I would say lies in forgiving yourself, creating space for you to mess up and make mistakes, do whatever you want, because you're worthy and you're a goddess, you're God. You're not this human just living here, living this mundane life, this life that just running around aimlessly. You act like that. You act like an animal. You act like you don't have no sense. You act ignorant. but it's an act. It's a show. You know, life is the show, and we all are actors, actresses playing these roles. And some of us are playing roles that we don't want to play. And it's because of similar situations, similar, I should say, beliefs, limiting beliefs as this one. Failure. There's no such thing as failure. I just watched a video today of Bashar. I love Bashar. Hopefully one day he and I will meet. I don't really have anything to ask him, but I just love him. Like, he's just so, I guess I shouldn't say I don't have anything to ask him, because I do have things to ask, but I can't really, I don't know. I just don't really form them into questions to ask directly. But every time I speak to him, man, he's just so wise. He's so fly. And I was watching a video today on my feed that popped up, and it was about forgiving yourself. And this guy was just like, I made some pretty bad mistakes. And Bashar was like telling the story of Thomas Edison and how he tried to make the light bulb 2,000 times. And they was like, someone asked him, like, how does it feel to have failed 2,000 times? Which, sidebar, that's a wild ass way to ask a question. I'm like, there's no way. If somebody asked me that, you need to chill the hell out, nigga. What? I didn't fail. What? That was wild. But nevertheless, Thomas Edison, he answered with such grace, such class, as we all should, But he answered, and he was just like, well, I just found 2,000 ways not to make a light bulb. And I was like, that's it, Bashar. Thank you for putting that out there in the universe, right? Because our egos will literally tell us these narratives that are so limiting, and they deduce you to this basically exactly how you feel about yourself, this inadequate being, this being that's not enough, that's not worthy, that doesn't deserve things, that's insecure, that has too many flaws, too many this, too many that, too wrong, too evil, too bad, too this, too that. And we all get caught up in this, and we do it to each other. We feed each other the poison, and then we, feed ourselves the poison. We allow ourselves to continuously be enslaved by our egos. And this limiting belief of failure, you can take that and step into that by asking yourself, what are the things in life that I failed at? And you ask yourself, okay, what are some things I personally was like, this is something I think of as a failure. For me, the longest, I freed myself from this. Just want to make that clear. I have no negative feelings about this. I don't need no. But I held on to the limiting failure belief for the longest about me dropping out of college. And it didn't help that the people in my circle also, like family and whatnot, would feed this with little comments. They would say unintentional, not really trying to tear me down, but it would feed the narrative that my ego was feeding me, which was, you're a failure, you suck, you didn't finish it, you don't finish anything, you're all these different things that my mind is telling me. And I was taking it, and I'm listening to my mind, and I'm like, well, I'm letting myself really allow myself to look at myself as a failure. That was pretty wordy. Sorry. But that's what you do. You really just start to adopt that belief. And so I, years later, just recently, started to go to therapy, and I had a therapist, and this was the first time someone ever, well, let me not say that. I don't want to limit my experience. But this was the first time I had, like, it really hit me, where I realized, like, I was telling my therapist everything I went through, and I told her, she had knew that I went to college. She had knew that I went to college because I had told her. And I was like, I didn't finish. I could, and I beat myself up, and I don't know if I want to go back, because I think I kind of feel like I will never finish. Like, if I go back, I wouldn't finish. And then also there were kind of some side things that I was thinking, which is, I don't really mess with college. I don't really believe in the way our society is built, but I do still believe that college is extremely beneficial. It's a great tool. It's just too damn expensive. That's the thing to me. It's too damn expensive, but it's still a great tool nonetheless. And I'm like, I'm telling her this, and she said, well, from everything you told me, it sounds like you were going through a lot during that time. And, I don't think you should hold it against yourself as you weren't enough or you were inadequate. Maybe you were just trying to survive, and this was just the least of your priorities. And it makes sense. Given, what you told me about you and who you are and the energy I feel from you, she's telling me this. And I'm like, hearing her perspective, she was so like pro me. Like she really was like, girl, and she's a Black woman. Amen. I love her. She was so great. But she was like, girl, you need to cut yourself a break for real. Given everything you just told me you was dealing with during that time, I don't think this should be the reason why you say I don't go back to college because I didn't do good enough. Well, it makes sense you didn't do good enough. You had a lot going on, a lot of things stacked against you, a lot of other priorities in life. And I don't think many people would have done as well in that role, in that position. And that, of course, my negative ass mind, I'm like, well, we don't know that. I'm sure there are people who have been in college and they've had so many situations and they still were able to do it. And I still was not, but I was able to really look at things differently after she said that. And I was like, oh, wow, I do believe that's what it is here. Like, I think that's what happened is I just had a lot going on in my life and that just was not a priority to me. It just always kept getting pushed further and further down. And I was holding on to this as if I was a failure. I'm looking at myself as a failure for not having finished college when once she said that, I'm like, well, maybe it just wasn't a priority to me at the time. And, I made some mistakes, but at that time, I didn't really realize that college was not a priority to me. I was just going through life. I was ignorant. I was not paying attention to what decisions I was making and how they really were affecting me. I was just trying to focus on surviving and surviving college, surviving my home life, surviving my finances, surviving my own shit, just surviving. I just need to survive every day. Just get through this day. Just let's get through this day. And when I was in it, it didn't seem like, when you're in the thick of it, it kind of doesn't seem as thick until afterwards. It's like you travel through that thick forest and then after you're out of it, you see the landing and you can see everything clearly. You look back and you're like, whoa, that was what I was going through? Oh my God, how did I even get through that? Like, this was a lot for me to be doing. And you will, your ego will say, oh, well, you didn't because you didn't do this, this, and this, and this, and this. And you didn't do this, this, and this, and this, the way that you said you were going to do. And you didn't do this, this, and this. But your higher self will tell you because you're strong, because you're amazing, because you're resilient. And you can't hear that voice because you're not tuned into that voice. You're too tuned into your ego voice. You're too tuned into your mind. Your mind is always going to be looking at things from a perspective of, I feel, until you change it. Let me make that clear. Until you change it, of how to protect you. And that can even mean protecting you from looking at the reality of the situation. It can mean protecting you by keeping you attached to limiting beliefs. At that time, I was definitely the type of girl. I was the type of girl that would just take on everything. Be hard on myself, beat myself up, tear myself down. Wear myself out. I would beat myself up. I maybe had never actually physically hurt myself, but the way that I would talk to myself, the way that I would treat myself on a mental, emotional, spiritual level, it just always seemed like, you're so hard on her. Like, relax. Like, geez, no wonder she wasn't growing. You were being so mean to her. Just cool to yourself because you caught up in this narrative, this ego narrative. When you call yourself a failure, you're being cruel to yourself. I don't care how you put it. I always think about me in another person's perspective. I would never call someone else a failure. So why the hell am I calling myself a failure? Like, that's messed up. And there's a lot of things that I realize that we play those double standards, right? Where we'll do things for other people. We'll show other people grace, but we won't show ourselves. And I'm like, why? Why is that? And that's when I was able to go to the worthy wound. I didn't believe that I was worthy. I didn't believe that I was worth showing myself forgiveness. I'm a failure. How could I? And it wasn't until I started to challenge that limiting belief that I was able to arrive to that strength, to that golden nugget that told me, actually, this is just your ego taking a circumstance that you went through and creating an entire belief system about you. This is just a circumstance. This is just a part of life. It was one little segment of life, and it was one little part of life, or it was one aspect of your life, and your ego took that and ran and created a whole limiting belief system. And you have attached yourself to that limiting belief system for now over a decade. Talk about programming. It's like, sheesh. That's a tough one. And then we show no patience for ourselves as we are going through these stepping stones to success. How can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? Give yourself grace. Like, damn, when you go on your spiritual journey, detaching from the ego death is the hardest part of it. It's the hardest. The hardest. The hardest. It takes every ounce of strength. It takes sitting with yourself over and over again, saying, okay, we're not over that yet. Okay. So what is it, feeling these pains, recapping triggering moments in life, allowing yourself to sit in those moments of triggers and observe you, the aspects of you, your ego, your inner child, these different versions of you, shadow self, higher self, intuition, all these different parts of you. You are the observer. And then you see this and you're like, oh, wow, okay. Things are starting to click. And this is when slowly, damn, because as a fire sign Leo, I'm telling you, I always say that, fire sign Leo, that irritates me. As a sun Leo, see right there it is. Like, I am very, very passionate. I'm very impatient. Sometimes I just feel like there is a fire under my ass, and everything I do, I try to rush it. You can't rush this process. This is a process that if you try to rush it, it will just take you through roundabouts that will come right back to where you were at, because you're not ready yet. I still need to sit with you. I still want to talk to you. I still want you to come and sit with me and hear all these things that happened to me that hurt me. And we will want to move on and experience, the good in life before we're able to receive it. How can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? Be grateful for where you're at. Be grateful for who you are today. If you are not where you feel you want to be, know that there are always people who want to be where you are at. And if you say, well, I'm homeless, well, there's people that want to come to Earth. Yes, there's a line of people that want to come to Earth. You don't know. I don't believe it. I didn't believe it for years, but now I'm like, okay, I see why. But I say that, I know that seems like really like hard up, I feel. And especially in the society that we live in, I feel like a lot of us just feel so not seen, pushed aside, not cared about, overlooked. But it's just so silly, because it's like humanity is really its own worst enemy. We do that to each other, and we do it to ourselves. And it's not until we stop doing it to ourselves that we will stop doing it to each other. If you see yourself as a failure, you're always going to see others as a failure in some way, and you're going to be hard on them. Even if you are able to show, space, give space to them in ways that you're not able to for yourself, You still, like, for me, Virgo moon, Virgo Venus, I can be really, really hard on others. And I'm very, very hard on myself as well. And so I have to learn to show myself grace. And that has been able to allow me to show others grace. And it has allowed me as well to free myself again from this idea, because for the longest, I felt like I was inadequate. Something's wrong with me. I'm a failure. Now that I'm able to forgive myself for what I've done, any mistakes, whatever, and show grace to myself and be like, you're a human, girl. You were just trying to figure it out. It's okay. We're all here trying to figure it out. Now and I've worked through also that limiting belief of failure by going through a lot of self-reflection, introspection time. And, you crush down these limiting beliefs, you start to get to this place where you don't see failure in anything or anyone. It doesn't even exist. Even in our society, I don't even see the failure in our society anymore. I see where it's not efficient, but it has not failed. It just needs to be created more efficiently. And we as humans complain about the society that we live in and do nothing, and continue to sit around and do nothing, do shit. Y'all sit around and still do shit. I don't see people doing shit. I had to be real with myself on that. I don't see people going to PTA meetings. Do we even have those anymore? I don't see people going to city council meetings. I don't see these things being done. I don't see people out in their community cleaning up. I don't see people doing these things. But yet we all contribute to the negativity, the negative. We contribute to that so much more than we contribute to the positive, staying solution focused. Our society is not doomed. It's just that we keep letting shit slip through the cracks. We keep holding on to these limiting beliefs such as failure. So someone asked me, well, Jaya, then how can we take this society and make it better? By working on yourself. It starts with you. It really does. Michael Jackson didn't lie with that. You got to go look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, who am I? What am I doing here? What do I want out of life? Why do I want that? It's not necessarily about what you want out of life, but why you want it. I've learned that. I ask myself, I tell myself, what do you want? Say what I want. And then I ask, well, why do you want these things? And I go through one by one, and I really, really allow myself to in-depthly answer that question. In-depthly, I don't know if that's a word, but if you're like, well, I don't do well like going deep, okay, put on a timer. Set a timer, and I want you to sit there with that question for 5 minutes. If nothing comes to your head in 5 minutes, then maybe you don't have really nothing to say about it. But I highly doubt that there will not be any questions or any comments or any mental images that come to your head in the whole 5 minutes of you pondering the question. Who am I? What do I want in life? Why do I want these things in life? These questions, I'm sorry. We have to take accountability for our life. You want to succeed? You don't want to be a failure? For sake of saying that failure and success are what the ego says they are, you say you don't want to be a failure, you say you want to succeed, okay. Go sit with yourself. Go spend time by yourself. Go and talk to yourself. That's what you need to do. The world without is nothing but a reflection of the world within. And you always are focused on the world without. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about succeeding without. You need to learn how to succeed within first. You need to be in this state of abundance, prosperity, and fulfillment right now. Even while you sitting in a shoebox with nothing but a penny and a paperclip and a little bread cracker. I need you to still sit there and be grateful and be in a state of abundance and prosperity and fulfillment. That's what I need you to do. You do that, and you start to meditate on that, and you start to ask yourself things, and then you start to integrate action plans. It's not enough to just believe you're not a failure. You got to go out there and show the world you're not a failure. This is me showing the world I'm not a failure. I'm being myself. I'm putting myself out there. You know, I've tried to do a podcast for years. I've been wanting to do this for years. I've always wanted to be a writer, a communicator, someone that used communication as her way of connecting with the world, you know. And I mean communication verbally, of course. But I hadn't believed it. I didn't believe in myself. Back then, that's why nothing ever took off the ground. And for the longest, I was afraid. I was so afraid to get this podcast started. I'm telling you, because I just had tried for so many years that I was like, I don't want to try again and fail again. And it wasn't until I realized that I didn't even look at those as failures anymore that I was like, oh, wow, we got rid of that limiting belief, huh? Because I was like, well, in the past I tried, but I realized that I wasn't exactly where I was supposed to be within to do what I was trying to do. And now that I'm where I'm supposed to be within, it flows. It flows. It flows. The information flows for me. What I'm trying to do flows. What I'm trying to get to flows. Everything I want, it flows. Flow. The more resistance you create, the more resistance you feel. Maybe you need to take a different approach. Or maybe you need to change your perspective. And that is a different approach. Change your perspective. Stop being so hard on yourself. You're not a failure. You ain't no damn failure. You're not. You're not. If you are still breathing, then you're not a failure. Because you haven't died. I feel like failure, honestly, is, if we want to equate it to anything, I'm going to say failure will be ending, and ending will be death. If I'm going to say whatever my definition of failure will be it ended. It's ended. That's my new definition of failure. Like if I say I failed at something, that's what it means to me. It ended. It's done. You know, we're done with this specific thing here. Like, I'm not done ever. And that's why, you know, I just try to live under that belief. You can't. You see how none of what I just said made sense? It sounded dumb as hell. I'm sure when you was listening, you couldn't even really follow it. Because you can't, like, failure is an illusion, y'all. It really, really is. How can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? I'll tell you the answer. Release your attachment from the limiting belief about failure. Failure does not exist. It has never existed. No one ever in time has ever failed. Not you, and not anyone before you, and not anyone after you, and not anyone that was born at the same time as you. We are not failures. Nothing we do in life is a failure. Failure is an illusion the ego creates because the ego is attached to this 3D realm and it doesn't understand it's ignorant. It's an ignorant, naive part of you that you have allowed to run your entire life. Think of the ego as a virus. It's infected your computer and you are the computer, your mind, I should say. And it's infected your computer and now you have to go in and get it cleaned. You have to become the computer tech that knows how to get this virus out of you, that knows how to kill this virus, ego death. You got to know how to put the ego in her seat and tell her, you going to sit there. I love you, but you going to sit right there. And you can talk all you want, but you going to sit right there. I'm in a driver's seat. I'm taking care of shit. I'm taking charge of my life. I'm not limiting myself from living and having the life that I want. Let me rephrase, that I deserve. You are a God. A God. Each and every one of us are gods living a human experience. And that human experience is tied to the ego. Once you die, you will just go completely to your God form. Right now, though, your God form said, I want to be a human. And so it became a human. And you are allowing this human side of you to limit you. Failure. You're a God. Failure does not exist. You live in a world where it is eternal. Where you get everything, come on. I love you, tribe. Love yourself. You're too fly to not. How can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? All right, tribe, that brings take two to an end. Take two to an end. Thank you for tuning in. All right, I'm done. But thank y'all so much for tuning in to Take Two. It has been a beautiful experience creating this take and sharing it and being able to connect with others over something that we all struggle with, failure, right? We've all struggled with that limiting belief. And as your mirror, as your soul sister, as your spirit sister, I want to free you. I want to allow space for you to free yourself. I'm sorry. That's your journey, baby. You got that. I'm sorry. I'm a Leo. My bad. I'm trying to take over your shit. That's all you. But I want to create space for you to come in and free yourself because I love you. You fly. And you deserve it. That's always going to be the reasons. Go ahead and get used to it for me. Amen. All right. So tribe, go ahead and answer that out. Discuss it. It's a great discussion point. Make sure that you are discussing from a place of acceptance, compassion, and respect. If you're not able to use those traits that you have, because I know you got them. If you're not able to, maybe take a step back and discuss it with yourself first. How can I reframe failure as a stepping stone to success? Let's go ahead and get into our affirmations before I send you off to be amazing in life. I am inherently valuable. The power that exists within me is limitless. I am whole and complete as I am. I release myself from cycles of hate, resent, and destruction. I embrace my experiences with love, presence, and acceptance. Thank you, tribe, for tuning in to this take. Thank you, universe, for bringing us in alignment. Be sure to comment, repost, and share the wisdom. Take care of yourself. Stay fly. Peace and love, tribe.